everybody, welcome back to the tavern. Excuse me. So today, this one's gonna get me. So I'm not gonna be involved in this one much. I'm just kind of moderating here. This is going to be a at the table debate, discussion, whatever you want, on whether or not Monty Python and the Holy Grail is based on the King Arthur myth or Don Quixote. On the King Arthur side, we have Atheist Pastor. Chris, how you doing? You're muted.
Yeah, I realised that just as I started speaking. So we're off to a real flying start here, but that's okay. I'm going great, doing fantastic. This is going to be brutal. This is going to be horribly brutal, but that's okay. Sometimes people just need to be taught a lesson when they mess with Monty Python.
And on the side of Don Quixote, we have one Ring 42.
Yep.
How you doing, Ring?
I'm doing well enough, and I'm sure anything Chris will do to me will be merely a scratch.
I'm bringing out the big guns for this. I'm bringing out the big guns.
All right, so before we start the debate, we're going to go type in the chat 1 for Arthur or 2 for Don Quixote, and then we'll do it again at the end and see if anybody has swayed their judgments here. So this is going to be, obviously it's going to be a lighthearted debate. We're not expecting where I'm going to have to go, no.
Oh, no, this is serious. Oh, this is a serious debate. This is life and death. You do not mess with Monty Python. We'll be very clear about that.
Well, so far, Ring, everybody says 1.
Yeah.
So I am really interested in seeing your take on it, because it's going to be interesting. So what we've got going on now, whether or not we actually stick to this format is a different story. We're going to do 5-minute openings each, followed by 10-minute rebuttals each, then a 20-minute open discussion, followed by a 5-minute conclusion or questions from the chat, depending how it goes. Whether or not it stays that way is going to be different. So I am going to let you guys, who wants to go first?
Huh?
Oh, all right.
Toss a coin.
Toss a coin. Yeah. I got a coin. All right. Heads, Ring. Tails, Chris. Tails, Chris. You get to go first.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I think it's important when we discuss things like this to remember bravely bold Sir Robin, who was brought forth from Camelot. Now, the thing with Sir Robin was he was not afraid to die. Brave Sir Robin. He was not at all afraid to be killed in nasty ways. Brave Sir Robin. Now, why do I mention the brave Sir Robin? Well, very simple. Don Quixote looks at, I guess, this person who is, I guess, traveling around and, in his own little world. But that's not true of Monty Python and the Holy Grail, because there's an entire ensemble, there's an entire cast of people. So I'll keep my introduction fairly brief, but the key question that we're looking at here is basically down to 3 scenes. The scene with the famous historian, the police investigating the death of the famous historian, spoilers, sorry, and then the arrest at the end. So what we need to do is we actually need to determine where that fits in. And what I will be arguing is that it certainly is this is something that is very consistent with the legend of King Arthur and the portrayal of King Arthur in contemporary storytelling. So I'm happy to leave that as my introduction, and we'll throw across the ring.
All right, Ring, go ahead.
Okay, so here's the thing. Don Quixote, written, the second part. So what we know of Don Quixote, published in 1615, is a satire of chivalric traditions, chivalric storytelling. And what is, if you were to set a Don Quixote adaptation in modern day Britain, of course, you would draw from Britannic chivalric storytelling, which is the Arthurian legend. So I am not discounting the thematic, the inspiration I'm not discounting the fact that Monty Python draws from Arthurian legend. I'm more saying that it draws more closely its inspiration from Don Quixote. And especially when you look at the fact that Terry Gilliam was co-director for Monty Python on the Holy Grail, and Terry Gilliam had been very very inspired by Don Quixote. He had wanted to make a Don Quixote movie for pretty much his entire career, and a lot of Terry Gilliam's filmography touches on themes of what is real and what is delusion, which is why these scenes that we will be discussing in this debate, the three scenes Chris mentioned, and also scenes that I feel are emblematic of what lift from thematically from Don Quixote, particularly Lancelot slaughtering the castle and others while and yeah.
All right, are you done?
Yep.
Okay. All right, Chris, rebuttal.
So I was just remembering the bit in the castle swamp where he's slaughtering everyone while they're singing, and that is, sorry, I love that part. I love that part. Yeah, it's right. So we're talking about a modern British setting, okay? And the question is it a modern British setting? And I'm going to say that no, it's not a modern British setting. And the evidence is in all bar, I guess, 3 scenes that could potentially have that element to it. But something that's actually very popular in the telling of Arthurian legend is time travel, which is originally seen in a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court. And since then, there have been various other time travel King Arthur narratives. So I guess there's a king in King Arthur's court. Obviously, the many adaptations of Mark Twain's Connecticut Yankee. We've got Merlin the Return. Even Whoopi Goldberg was a knight in Camelot. There was the New Adventures of King Arthur. Black Knight, which I can't remember who was in that. I think it might have been Chris Rock. Someone in the chat will probably yell at me, but that was a really terrible movie anyway, so it doesn't matter. The Excalibur Kid, Johnny Misto, Boy Wizard. So it's not unusual for time travel to be involved in the telling of this story. So I think time travel is something that can't be discounted. The other thing that can't be discounted is a literary term that has become a little bit more popular in modern time, and it's certainly something that was coined after the movie came out, but what's called an isot, or an island in the sea of time, which was originally a story that was done by S.M. Stirling. Now, the premise of this story is that Nantucket, the island of Nantucket, finds itself taken out of time and placed in the ancient world, and it's a series of books, but it sort of deals with Nantucket there. I would suggest that rather than Don Quixote, because we're dealing with the main characters are in medieval England, and there's multiple examples of that. So the French army, there was no French army at castles launching cows in 1970s Britain. Bring out your dead, unless there was a plague that I wasn't aware of, people weren't bringing out their dead in 1970s Britain. The burning of the witch, and the determination that she weighed the same as a duck. Even the wonderful Castle Anthrax, which is a place that I think everyone would love to visit. Who wouldn't want to go to Castle Anthrax, and just never leave.
I will have to. Sorry,
your turn. Chris has still got 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh wow, have I been going that long? Gosh.
No, I'm sorry. You're right. You got 6 minutes. You've been in 4 minutes. You still got 6 minutes.
Oh, there you go. That's all right. I won't take it all up. So Swamp Castle. You did mention that where Lancelot goes and he slaughters everyone. When the father meets Lancelot for the first time and he says, he's from Camelot, he goes, "Oh, Camelot, good pig country there. So he's aware of, he knows Camelot. When Arthur introduces himself to people, he says, "I am Arthur, King of the Britons." People know who he is. Even the peasants who are talking about the government that they live in, saying it's a dictatorship. 1970s Britain was not a dictatorship. So I would say, and I would suggest that it is very, very consistent with the Arthurian legend, time travel. And I would suggest what has happened is a famous historian and potentially a town has found themselves isotted, an island in the sea of time, taken out of modern Britain and placed in the medieval world, unaware of what's going on. Thus the confusion, and thus why, as a British army is about to storm a French castle, the police show up. Because in 1970s Britain, there was no British armies storming a French castle. And I'll finish at that for now.
All right, Ring, 10.
Okay, so first off, I'll have to congratulate you on mentioning Castle Anthrax, because I will admit that is a big chink in my armor, so to speak, because Castle Anthrax is actually a location in Arthurian legend. But the funny thing about all that time travel you mentioned is they all largely stem from Mark Twain's work, A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court. So it seems that instead of arguing that Monty Python is based on King Arthur, you are actually, seem to be arguing that Monty Python is based off Connecticut Yankee, which fair enough. Just own up to that, if you will. And once again, the thing is, are we talking about time travel, or are we talking about a group of deluded people who think that they are living through Arthurian legend? Because the delusion that you're living through chivalric fantasy is one of the driving plots of is the main driving plot of Don Quixote. And once again, we are dealing with a film that was directed by Terry Gilliam, who is very fond of blurring the line between what is actually happening canonically and what is merely happening in the minds of the characters. He is very fond of the camera as the unreliable narrator. Now, I will admit that it was also co-directed by Terry Jones, who's more well known for, the other Monty Python movies, Meaning of Life and Life of Brian. But I would argue that you can see his influence more in the political jokes, like strange women lying in ponds distributing swords is not a basis for a system of government, and whether and of course whether or not the 1970s Britain, or late 70s early 80s Britain, was under a dictatorship is, I guess, up to how you feel about Maggie Thatcher.
Mrs. Thatcher. Love it.
And let's see. And so on the scene of a swamp castle, because I would argue that the figure, the quote unquote figure of Don Quixote is really, there are really two figures in this in this film that kind of amplify or are emblematic of the Don Quixote figure, or two versions of the Don Quixote figure. First, you have Graham Chapman as King Arthur, as the movie The Dreamer kind of figure, and meanwhile Lancelot, played brilliantly by John Cleese, is your book Don Quixote, your crazy madman who has no compunction whatsoever about randomly slaughtering people because he thinks he's on a noble quest. Yeah, you see that in the Castle Anthrax scene as he's murdering the nuns to get Sir Galahad away, and then more prominently at Swamp Castle, which actually touches a bit more on the second part of Don Quixote, where it kind of diverts into like melodramatic love triangles, essentially.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, neither one of you used up your full time on either one of those sections, so we got lots of time to discuss.
Yeah.
So I mean,
you don't need to when you're right.
The plan was a half hour and then into the discussion, but it looks like we're going to have about 40 minutes. So,
well, I'm happy to kind of split that up between us having a bit of a chat about it, and I guess people have got questions or comments in the comments. I'm pretty easy about that.
Yeah. So
even though this is a life and death serious debate, obviously.
Just remember, don't talk over each other. Give each other a chance to speak. If needed, I will mute you. If I find you're talking over each other too much. So it's all yours.
Cool. So I'll throw back to you. You mentioned Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court.
Yes.
I would argue that is about a story that deals with King Arthur rather than Don Quixote. So I've got no problem, and I guess the point I'm making is it's more the narrative that time travel and King Arthur. Yeah, it's not a new concept for King Arthur. It's not a unique concept for an Arthurian story, even though I mean clearly the original tale doesn't have time travel.
Yeah,
but I mean it's potentially that could be I would say it's potentially paying homage to that rather than being about that. I'd say it's paying homage to that, but it also could just be like the scene in The Life of Brian where he falls off the building and all of a sudden an alien spaceship comes and captures him, and it's just silly. It's just something silly. It's just which is humor. So I guess I'd say that. But the main thing is, it's the entire setting everywhere they travel, with the exception of the scene with the historian, is medieval Britain. The people who they engage with are all members of medieval Britain. So I would say on that, we're not dealing with the delusions of one person or even a small group of people. We're dealing with some pretty crazy people, but in medieval England.
Now, the thing is, another thing about Connecticut Yankee is it's once again a satire and once again rather satirical takedown of the notion of chivalry, through the lens of Arthurian legend, and is actually also a takedown of the sort of new Camelot, what's the word, for the the plantation South, like pseudo aristocracy of that was contemporary to Mark Twain. That sort of nouveau nobility that was establishing itself as a sort of pseudo Camelot. But what we really need to know about Camelot is it's not really supposed to be meant as anything other than a fictionalized ideal.
Well, let's be honest, Camelot is a silly place.
Well, it's only a model.
Very good.
Yeah. And in fact, that line there could arguably point to that the squires or the horses, depending on how you see them, are filling the role of Sancho Panza, the somewhat dim-witted the dim-witted squire of the delusional knights who actually see reality for what it is.
But then you've got to look at the amount of people we're dealing with. We're dealing with an entire troop at the end. We're dealing with an entire army. We're dealing with people who hadn't previously had contact with Arthur. You know, we're dealing with when he meets Galahad. Bedivere. When he meets Bedivere, Bedivere is very much running that village, and people are going to Bedivere for knowledge, and so they can determine, you know, the witch. Arthur shows up. He says, "I'm Arthur, King of the Britons." Automatically, Bedivere knows who he is and agrees to follow him on the quest. So it's not something that's seen as unusual. It's not who, like Arthur. No, he's not a real person. There's none of that. Even, you know, it's the Black Knight. The Black Knight would not have existed in 1970s Britain. Certainly not guarding a bridge. You know, the keeper of the bridge who asks the questions. As far as I know, that's not how tolls were collected in 1970s Britain. So the question is, if it's a mass delusion, and we're talking about a delusion on a regional scale, does that fit with Don Quixote? I'd argue that no, it doesn't fit with Don Quixote. Even if I was to grant you that it was a mass delusion, which I'm not. It's definitely set in Arthurian Britain, because even at the start of the movie, it has England 12 something, or it actually no, it's not 12, but it actually has the year. So it has England and the year underneath it. So it clearly indicates that it is England in that year.
Well, what I'm not, like, what you seem to think I'm arguing, you know, the fact that it's some kind of mass delusion. No, I'm arguing that perhaps, you know, the delusion would be only contained to, say, to the knights themselves, and we are viewing the film through their eyes, so we are seeing what they think they're seeing.
But then you could argue that for any movie. You could argue that Star Wars is a mass delusion. We're just seeing it through the eyes of Luke Skywalker.
Well, yeah, but once again, that goes back to Terry Gilliam as a director is very fond of using this element in his films, where he's making you not sure whether or not what we're seeing is a delusion in the characters or actually happening as per the plot of the film. Like, for instance, The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, where it gets progressively more fantastic as the movie progresses, and then it kind of almost jerks you back and forth as to whether or not this is actually happening. And once again, you know, also directed by Terry Gilliam.
But so Terry Gilliam is only one of the people, and only one of the writers.
My argument, like, I will grant that my argument largely hinges on how much of Holy Grail was influenced by Gilliam and how much of Holy Grail was influenced by Jones.
Mm-hmm. So, reading from John Cleese, and I'm getting it up so I can actually quote John Cleese here. It's just where I'm trying to quote him from. It's popping a million ads up at me, which is actually really annoying. So Google, you suck.
Well, while you're doing that, Chris, looking that up, I actually have a question from the chat for Ring. If we can do that while you're doing that.
Go for it. Go for it.
Zapaste wants to know, on that note, Ring, is Sancho in this story Bedivere or Sir Robin?
Ooh. Yeah, I could kind of see Bedivere as a Sancho Panza, but I kind of more see the squires as the Sancho Panza sort of figures, because they're just kind of there, and they seem to be the only ones who really understand what's going on. You know, it's only a model after all.
Did you find it, Chris?
I've got it.
Okay.
So I'm going to quote John Cleese here, where he was being interviewed about both the Holy Grail and Life of Brian. It's very lucky that the two Python films that are the best ones, that one and The Life of Brian, were both set in historical periods. From the writer himself, it is set in a historical period. which would indicate time traveling police.
Okay.
Or an island in the Sea of Time. I prefer to think it's if you were to have a serious take on that narrative, I would suggest that it's not just the police who have been transposed out of time. It's potentially a village or an area that has found itself out of time and taken back to medieval England.
Yeah.
So I'd suggest more the SM Stirling Island in the Sea of Time would probably be the more appropriate alternative narrative. If we were to take if we're taking a serious look at Monty Python and what that's on, definitely the Island in the Sea of Time is probably more appropriate than Don Quixote. I would suggest. Incidentally, anyone who hasn't read Island in the Sea of Time, it's a freaking awesome book series.
Yeah,
I'll read it.
I'll have to look into that because that does sound fascinating.
Nantucket in about 2000 or about 1000 BC. It's just
now
interesting.
The question is, do they actually retain their technology?
Yes, to an extent they do. So they've got in the Island of the Sea of Time, there's like a Coast Guard ship that happens to be there at the time, and helicopters. Basically everything that would have been in the island of Nantucket in the 1990s. So it's everything that's there, and they use that Coast Guard ship to go and sail to trade with Europe, and it's a very interesting narrative. Definitely a good book, worth reading. But it's probably and it's actually spawned an entire subset of fiction, which is called ISOT, which stands for quite literally Island in the Sea of Time, where areas, it could be a story where 2020 New York City finds itself isotted to the 17th century in the same place, or things like that, or all of a sudden, it's 1930s Britain, finds itself, so it's sort of it's an alternate history kind of subset, which I'd say, and once again, even though, and I will admit that Monty Python did come out well before Island in the Sea of Time, but that is probably a more appropriate narrative to look at rather than Don Quixote. And if you disagree with me, I will say "ni" to you again.
Well, we are no longer the knights who say "ni." We now say "it get the time for reason."
Well, this is my favorite guy, the French taunter.
Yeah. And
so would you concede that that probably An Island in the Sea of Time, based off the description and the narrative that I've given there, is probably more appropriate to this movie in particular?
So I will concede that it was based off your quote from John Cleese. I will concede that it was more largely based off of Arthurian legend. Mm-hmm. Though I do hold that there is probably some influence of Don Quixote in the film,
which I'm happy to concede that there may be some of that influence there. But my argument would be it is a King Arthur movie. While it may have some influences, it draws influences from a lot of different places, and that comes down to the creative way that they that the Monty Python crew would tell their story. Even though really, I mean, I think of Monty Python and I know there's The Meaning of Life, but really for me, there's two Monty Python movies, which is The Holy Grail and The Life of Brian.
Meaning of Life is a sketch montage.
It is essentially. It's like flying circus on steroids. But there's even things within, as I mentioned, The Life of Brian in particular, that just a random out of nowhere kind of thing where he falls off and all of a sudden there's the the spaceship.
Yeah.
You know, and he goes up into space, and the aliens and they drop him off, and it's just one of those random things. And
or you know how in Holy Grail the black beast of
oh,
you know,
it's terrifying, that
you
thing.
know, yeah, you know, disappears because the animator had a heart attack.
Yeah,
and died.
Yeah, so things like that. But it's definitely it's without a doubt it's an Arthurian story, and it is, while I'm happy to concede it may have some Don Quixote influences, although I'm not necessarily convinced it does. But I wouldn't completely discount it. I would say it's probably more likely for that part, time travel or eyesight. But it's the setting is, so John Cleese has come out and said it's set in ancient England. We've got at the start of the movie it's Britain. I think it's 932. I think it's England 932. So it clearly does state that, and the setting and the people who are around it are definitely not people from 1970s England, and with the exception of the police, there's no evidence that it would be. And even if, like you said, we're viewing it through the eyes of these people having a delusion, then why would they see the police at the end? Wouldn't they see it as they were just captured by the French, or they were taken in by a contemporary army, rather than looking confused and being thrown into the back of a police van?
and there is one slight sticking point I have with with saying that it's wholly based off King Arthur, is that there's a lot that's kind of important to the Arthurian legend thematically that is separate from Holy Grail, but that's largely because Holy Grail is so comedic about it, and it's mostly about the questing for the Holy Grail, not the rise and fall of Camelot itself. But
personally, I'm disappointed, and I think they probably have a lot of regret that that they didn't save the holy hand grenade of Antioch into the end. I mean, with those time traveling police officers lobbing the holy hand grenade, could have solved the whole thing.
Yeah,
potentially would have left them with some nice technology too.
Yeah, and of course, if I were holding stronger to the Don Quixote thing, I could easily say that the holy hand grenade isn't a holy hand grenade. It's just a mundane hand grenade that they see as a holy relic.
I think it's actually further evidence of time travel, that this holy relic was placed in ancient in the ancient Holy Land, and it was recovered, and it's this ancient relic, but it's clearly from the future. So clearly in the universe in which this exists, there's a lot of time travel. There's a lot of things being displaced. There's a lot of even the fact that the French were able to get to where the Grail was so fast, and had a Grail-shaped beacon. The Grail-shaped beacon at Castle Anthrax. Another example of future technology finding its way.
Well, I mean, the French already had one. They already had a Grail.
It's very nice.
Yeah. Robert, I will say to you, African or European?
I don't know. So, yeah, I guess I've probably covered a lot of things. Purple's actually put the link for Island in the Sea of Time in there. Seriously, it sparked an entire genre. It's Sterling's not the greatest literary sensation, I guess you'd say, but the idea behind the story is really good. I 100% say read it.
For something similar, I'd suggest reading Time's Eye, which is the first book in a time odyssey. It's a collaboration between Arthur C. Clarke and Stephen Baxter.
Yeah, cool. Actually, also anything by Harry Turtledove.
Oh yeah, Harry Turtledove is amazing for alternate history.
Yeah, have you ever seen the one with the Second World War and the aliens show up?
Oh yeah, and the sequel series and the follow up to that as well.
Oh yeah, that is classic. There's some classic stuff there. But we digress. So, look, I guess I think we've kind of had our back and forth. We've kind of covered everything. I'm happy to take questions from the audience. Otherwise, we can conclude.
Unless
you've got anything else.
One thing. Purple said it earlier in the chat. Like, why not both? My actual position is more of both. I just kind of couched it the way I did to get. To try and get people to think a little bit more critically about the movies that they're watching. It was phrased that way to instigate discussion, essentially.
I guess I'd argue with the why not both, because I'm not convinced it is Don Quixote. I think potentially there could be some very minor thematic inspiration, but I'd suggest that it's not. It wouldn't be a 50-50 split. I mean, if anything, we'd be talking like a 99.9% Arthur and possibly a 0.1 with the inspiration. It's just like saying that Star Wars was inspired by samurai movies. It's not a samurai movie, but potentially there was some inspiration there. So you can look at a lot of these things in that way. But I'd say, if anything, the main theme is, apart from King Arthur, that small maybe 0.5% would be time travel and eyesight.
Hissy's disappointed in your ring. You're not supposed to. Yeah. You're not supposed to concede defeat until after the votes are counted.
Well, I was arguing authorial intent, and that John Cleese quote kind of I couldn't get past that John Cleese quote.
Well, I looked it up, and the official synopsis of it is a comedic send-up of the grim circumstances of the Middle Ages as told through the story of King Arthur and framed by a modern-day murder investigation. So, even the official synopsis says King Arthur. Yeah. To be honest, I mean, since you guys are done discussing... To be honest,
I will say this: he's done better than Darth Dawkins, like a hell of a lot better than Darth Dawkins.
Yeah,
like it's yeah. So don't stress about it. It was an impossible position you had to debate.
Yeah, though I will say, doing better than Darth Dawkins is a very low bar to clear.
I am a little confused though, Ring, because you talked this all up about the whole Don Quixote thing. I didn't get much Don Quixote references from you. It seemed to me you were more trying to discredit the Arthur myth than actually input your thoughts on the Quixote part. So this would be the time for you to sneak what your Quixote references and why you actually think Quixote is in there. Because like I said before, it just seemed like you've just spent the last 40 minutes trying to discredit the King Arthur part.
And largely for me, the whole tie to Don Quixote is largely thematic for me. It's not anything really plot specific. And that's also kind of why I brought it up in the Media Musings, because the Media Musings show is meant to be kind of talking about the thematics at play in a work. And like I said, it's a satirical send-up of Britannic chivalry. And, Don Quixote was a, satirical send-up of Spanish chivalry novels of the time. So the ties for me are more thematic and more tonal, rather than anything plot specific.
See, what I like is it's good to think about movies. It's good to not just look at something from baseline. It's good to be entertained, but sometimes there's a lot of stuff that's deeper in movies. And I guess that's what I appreciate here. I'm not convinced on the Don Quixote aspect. I'm not completely discrediting it. But you know what? This whole thing's made me think about Monty Python and the Holy Grail in a deeper sense, apart from, lobbeth thee thy holy hand grenade, the knights who say knee, and shrubbery. I mean, it's made me. It makes you look into it, and I think that's a good thing. Like, regardless of who's right, who's wrong. The fact that it made me go back and watch one of my favorite movies of all time and think about one of my favorite movies of all time, especially at the moment where we're all stressed. You know what? To put a smile on my face and to laugh at something, I think that's a gift at the moment. So I want to tell everyone, go back and watch the movie. Go back and watch it and look at it through the lens that Ring's presenting. Look at it through the time travel and the eyesight lens as well, and just sit back and enjoy it. I mean, laugh, have fun, love the movie, because we all need to laugh at the moment. We all need to smile. We all need to feel better. And you know what they say? Laughter is the cure for everything.
Yeah.
Josh, go ahead, Ring.
And I will say, my goal for this debate was to try and get people to, you who are watching, to think, to try and dive a bit more deeper into the themes of the media that you consume, and try and explore those themes. And if you do that, then I'm happy with the result of the debate.
Cool. Well, should we go to conclusions?
Hang on, just a second. Josh says the end of the movie could have been seen as a Quixote due to the illusion of the story, and the end being a big LARP battle that got out of hand.
Yeah.
Could also be
the end. The end is when reality comes crashing in on our delusional nights.
So we're waiting for some questions to see if anybody's got any questions. Why don't you guys go ahead and give your end statements?
Cool. I'll let you go. I went first last time, Ring, so you can go first this time if you want.
Okay. Well, once again, I will say that I very much, my real position is very much it's a mix. My whole point in this debate is to get you guys to think, to try and explore the media you consume, when possible, and get a little bit more richer experience than just, looking at it at the surface level, because looking at the media you consume at the surface level is how we get fundamentalists. And so that'll be my closing.
Well, look, what I would say is, with the movie itself, the setting is what's important, and the people around it. Now, the setting for me, where they're traveling to, as I've mentioned, it is definitely medieval England. So it's not 1970s Britain. And apart from those three scenes, and certainly a key one at the end, there's very limited evidence that it is set in a modern setting, or I say modern setting, 1970s England when the movie came out. But look, like Ring said, it's good to think about these things. But if I were to throw an alternative narrative, for me, rather than Don Quixote, it would be time travel, which once again is something that is consistent with Arthurian stories, and certainly with classics like A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court. I would suggest that it's more that kind of, you probably put more of that theme into it. But once again, we're talking a very, very small percentage. So the question is it a King Arthur movie or a Don Quixote movie? It's absolutely a King Arthur movie. It's about Arthur, King of the Britons. It's about his court. Camelot's in it. The setting, everything leads to say it is a King Arthur movie. How you interpret that and some of the themes inside, obviously, that's cool. You can interpret things in different ways, but it is absolutely a King Arthur movie. And I rest my case.
All right, so I put in the chat, has your opinion changed? Push 1 for Arthur, 2 for Don. We've got a 1.5 and a 3.
Yeah.
An Island in the Sea of Time. I like that.
So Raven comes in at 1.5. Purple comes with 3. Joss is at 1. Anacito's 3. He goes, I got here late. Those that weren't the only 2 things in the movie, though. Hissy's at a 3. Lizzie's at a 1.
Oh, I've argued for Island in the Sea of Time too well.
Yeah. 42.
42. Megan up to 42. Yeah.
Regardless, you know what? How good is it talking Monty Python? Like seriously, how good is the movie? I mean, and that's one thing we can all agree on. Regardless, and there's no debate on that. Monty Python and the Holy Grail is one of the best movies. Actually, I think it's my favorite movie. I'm pretty sure it's my favorite movie of all time. And you know what? I'm probably going to go and watch it tonight and make the kids watch it again, and sort of look at them as they suffer through it and not understand a single thing while I'm, chuckling my head off at, lobbeth thee thy holy hand grenade of Antioch. At thine
and about all the credits writers being sacked.
Oh yeah. Actually, I'm surprised you didn't bring up, because it has that sort of Spanish Mexican.
The
credits at the start.
Spanish music at the beginning.
Yeah, so it's there's maybe that is the link, but
maybe it is a nod to how
it could be.
Raven says she doesn't like it.
Well, I can't respond to that. I will say, you know what, me. That's what I'm going to say to you, Raven. Me.
Well, like I said before, I thought Life of Brian was kind of meh. So, but I liked Holy Grail. So,
well, and to be fair, a lot of the reason why Life of Brian is my favorite is probably because of the point in my life in which I saw it.
So what? Actually, and here's an interesting question: what did you see first, Life of Brian or the Holy Grail?
I saw Holy Grail first because it's ridiculously hard to get a hold of Monty Python. It was ridiculously hard to get a hold of Life of Brian in the States before the internet.
I've heard that.
And I had actually seen Life of Brian while I was on leave from a tour in Afghanistan.
Okay. If you're going to see it, I guess that's the way to see it. See, I was the other way. I saw Life of Brian first, but then Holy Grail is my. But that being said, I love a lot of the. I love Life of Brian. I love a lot of the undercurrents. Like the gourd and the sandal, showing demonstrating the split of religions and how things are interpreted.
And it's chock full of terrorism jokes.
Oh, big time.
Yeah,
big time.
Raven says, "Bring it." She ain't scared.
I'm just going to keep saying neat to her. I mean, we show, until she gets us a shrubbery, at least, I think.
Yeah.
Josh says,
and a second one, so we can have a path.
Yeah, actually, just so Raven knows, I'm going to fart in her general direction.
Yeah.
I've got this fellow to help me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. But Brave Sir Robin. Probably the best in the movie.
I still don't, even after listening to this, I still don't see any Don Quixote connection at all. I just don't. But that's me. I mean, I get the Arthur reference. I mean, because that's all you ever think about, Arthur, the Holy Grail. Yeah. The only thing, like Josh had said, is maybe the LARP scene at the very end. We're comparing that to Don Quixote realizing he was freaking batshit crazy. That'd be the only way I could pull Don Quixote into this movie at all, and that's a big stretch.
Well, I mean, I at least got Raven to move like halfway.
And I think Island in the Sea of Times actually won the whole thing. But you know what? That makes me happy, because that means people are going to go and read a very little read book by S.M. Stirling that that actually is part of a good trilogy. And I would deeply encourage people to go and read that and to discover some of these kind of smaller stories that have kind of spanned these small subsets within subsets. It's like it's an alternate history kind of subset. And like I said, S.M. Stirling, it's probably it's not. You're not going to be reading Shakespeare, but the story's a really cool thing to think about.
And you definitely love Time's Eye.
Time's Eye. Yep.
Yeah,
okay.
Arthur C. Clarke and Stephen Baxter. It's kind of the Time Odyssey is kind of a parallel series to Space Odyssey, where instead of uplifting and testing the human race, the aliens from Space Odyssey are out to destroy the human race. But first they break up. They basically make it a museum Earth out of different chunks of our world in space time. Yeah. So you have some British people, like modern British people, joining up with the British Expeditionary Force that was in India, and Alexander the Great's army, and you have a group of Russian cosmonauts ending up with the Mongol horde of Genghis Khan. And the climax of the book is, Alexander the Great versus the Mongol horde of Genghis Khan, all for the prize of the city of Babylon.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Actually, a couple of cool ones. We mentioned Harry Turtledove before. So the World War series, anyone who wants a good read, the World War series, it's basically the Second World War, and it's going on as per normal when all of a sudden aliens arrive and invade. And the aliens are basically at a similar, probably a slightly more advanced tech level. It's really interesting. It seems like they develop slowly.
Yeah, it seems like their military tech is about on par with what we have now.
Yeah, maybe not even, and it's all the forces. So you've got the Second World War playing out; they're all fighting each other, and then they've got to kind of come together to fight these aliens. And then, but it's about 9 books. It ends up.
Well, it's 7. So you have the first trilogy, which is the World War II. And then you have the second trilogy, which takes place 20 years later when the colonization fleet arrives.
Shh, don't spoil. Oh yeah, don't spoil too much.
Yeah, and then you have the last follow-up book.
Another good one, and I was trying to find. I couldn't remember. It was a short story that Turtledove did. It's called The Road Not Taken, where it's set where the in a modern setting. And all of a sudden, these alien spaceships arrive, and it's I guess the military gets ready to fight this invading alien fleet, and the aliens come out with muskets because it turns out there's a really simple technology that allows space travel that most civilizations get like back in the Iron Age that we miss. So we've got these aliens just get decimated by our military, and then we discover that it's a real simple thing that powers the ships. And it's they go into the ships, and it's like they don't have plumbing, they don't have sewerage. It's just like this. It's like these iron hulks that can travel really fast, and the aliens come to invade us as as what they think is going to be a backwater that hasn't found this technology. But then all of a sudden we decimate them in a matter of minutes.
Or a different flesh is another good Harry Turtledove book. It's a collection of short stories based around a theme or based around a setting, and the setting is Native Americans never made it to to the Americas, but Homo erectus did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's a cool theme.
Yeah.
Homo erectus has done well to get there.
Yeah. When Columbus discovers the Americas, instead of Native Americans, it's Homo erectus there.
Yeah, Homo erectus wouldn't have fared very well in
Yeah.
that one. That would have been, yeah. Well, I mean, they basically treat it as if they were just like monkeys or apes. Sorry, not monkeys, apes. But
one of the stories, in it is actually like Darwin's wife coming up with the theory of evolution by like seeing a chimp in a zoo, seeing a Homo erectus in a zoo, and then like looking at her husband.
Thinking he's the next level.
Yeah.
or in between.
All right.
And like
go ahead, Rick.
Yeah.
You can imagine Ken Hovind with that one, can't you?
All right, so
that was fun.
Yeah, this was entertaining. I liked it. It was kind of. I love doing these little things. I mean, we had the great pineapple pizza debate, which I still think Zach's wrong. But excuse me. And then the Monty Python debate. Of course. Then we had the horrible yet fabulous Darth Dawkins debate. So
yeah,
which you're still so kicking my ass on views on that one.
I don't know how. Seriously, you even gave me the program that helps you with the tags.
Yeah, and I copied your tags and put it on mine, and you're still beating.
I think I was ranking #1 in the searches for Darth Dawkins. I mean, I'll pop on, and every day they'll be like, "Oh, you have a new comment on the destruction of Darth Dawkins." I'm like, seriously, people are still finding that? I think it's at like 1,700 views or something like that. It's crazy.
Yeah, Raven says it's the title. Yeah, because yours does. Mine just says Darth Dawkins versus Atheist Pastor. Yours says the destruction of Darth Dawkins. So yeah, it's probably
I probably go for the more dramatic. It's if I do a mirror of this, it's going to be the desolation of one ring or something like that. Well, unless Rings won the debate, I don't know. Maybe it'll be the destruction of Atheist Pastor. Atheist Pastor goes down, Darth Dawkins and all his minions will click on that one. Yes, yes. The man who sounds like Ken Hovind wins.
That's because the way you watch the movie, it's stupid, and your head is full of water.
I could listen to you do that all day, man.
All right,
I seriously could.
Ring, why don't you tell us what you got coming up, man?
Okay, so tomorrow morning, I'm running actually in about 12 hours. I am running the Passion of the Christ as a D&D 5e Lich fight. And I've got with Danger Hissy, Jen from Jen's Little Corner, and X-Cult Baby. And then a personal friend of mine filling out the party. And yes, there will be Life of Brian references in there as well.
Because he's not the Messiah, he's a very naughty boy.
Anything else coming up?
Unfortunately, my phone got stolen, and so until I get a case for my replacement phone, I don't feel, I don't really feel comfortable like trying to film with my tripod and phone until I get a case. So edited videos are temporarily on hiatus, but next week on Media Musings we will be discussing canon. Just the general idea of what is canon, and then the week after that we will be discussing comic books for as an early free comic book day episode, and then the entire month of May is Star Wars month.
Yeah, May the 4th be with you. I have got to get you and Hissy on because you guys screwed up your Blues Brothers stream so bad. I started recording a video. I got 10 minutes into your stream and had 40 minutes of content. I went, no. I can't do this. I'm only 10 minutes in and I got 40 minutes. I'm going to have to sit down and we'll have to discuss one-on-one because, oh my God, did you guys screw that up? But it's all in fun. So don't take it. I don't want you guys taking it bad because it's not. I'm not going. Oh, you son of a bitch. No, it's all in fun.
Like the one hill I will die on in regards to the Blues Brothers is it is definitely a jukebox musical.
Is the Blues Brothers? Is that like an American TV show or something? Or?
Yeah, you just shut your mouth. All right, Chris, what you got coming up?
I got heaps coming up. I got heaps and heaps and heaps. So, okay. So we've got Friday Night Six Pack every Friday night, which is myself and 5 other people sitting around having drinks, occasionally talking serious, but we try not to. We've also got Midweek Six Pack. Midweek Six Pack is going to be a real cool one this week because we're actually discussing secular Buddhism and other, I guess, secular belief systems. So that's going to be a really cool one. That's on Tuesday night for me, Tuesday morning for those in the US. Thursday day for me or night. I've actually just lined up. I've actually got someone who's coming on who's a media commentator, has, journalist, has written in many magazines, as a guest contributor on Sky News as well, and we're going to be discussing conservatism and atheism, and I guess atheism within the conservative movement. So that should be really interesting. And then on the 22nd for people in the States and the 23rd, I'm actually interviewing Shannon Q. We're going to be discussing. I guess it's for a new, show of or whatever you'd call it, new sort of regular thing that's going to be on the channel, which is called Community Conversations. We're just going to be talking about her in the community and I guess what drives her to do what she does, and that's going to be a part of a series of those conversations that I'm going to have with people in the community to see what makes us all jump on YouTube and other various platforms and do what it is we do. So that's me in a very brief nutshell.
Cool. So for me, what I got coming up next week, we have Jeff from Steaming Cup of Reason. We'll be on at 7 in the pool room there, and then following that, I have a tentative, if I remember right. Let me double check. Yeah, tentative Facepalm Factor following Steaming Cup of Reason. Next month, on the 9th, I've got Ross Burns in the pool room. The 16th at Digital Hammurabi, Dr. Josh and Megan will be joining us. And on the 23rd, I got Nakasuchi and Aliyah Kai from the Raging Atheist. Rounding out April this month, I got Damian Marie Adhope on the 25th. And then Grumpy Old Dude on May 2nd. And then some facepalm factors thrown in here and there, depending on how things go. I'm kind of excited about the Ross Burns one because he's a Christian apologist. It'd be the first time I actually get to talk to somebody that's not in the atheist type community. So yeah, that's going to be cool. Anacito asks, when's the next serial killer video coming out? Still working on it, still getting some stuff together. The next one will be on the co-ed killer, Edmund Kemper. So that one is going to take, luckily with that one, the hardest part with getting this one done is what I want to keep in and what I want to leave out, because Ed has done a lot of interviews and there's a lot of tape on Ed Kemper, him talking. So it's trying to figure out, what I want to keep in and what I want, because if I just kept everything in, we're looking at hours and hours of stuff. So it's just trying to weed down what to put in. Other than that, I really don't have anything else coming out. Symbols, it's at some point if I can sit down and do it, and then hopefully this week I will have a video out. It's called this. Your Second Amendment does not trump someone's right to life. And that's based on the United States Second Amendment, and the right to bear arms, because the United States does have a problem with guns. And that one is going to take a while because I want to make sure I get everything correct, and I don't want to speculate whole lot of stuff too much. You know, I want to get facts from England and Australia and other countries for comparison between the United States and the other countries. So that one's going to take a little while. Other than that,
I can give you the stats on Australia right now.
0 since what?
Yep.
96,
95.
95. Yeah, Port Arthur.
With the only exception was a lunatic that killed his family.
Yeah.
That's technically classed as a mass shooting. But apart from that, 0. We banned guns. Well, we banned semi-automatic weapons. 0.
So,
yeah. One other thing I did need to plug really quickly that I forgot.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the roast of Ken Ham coming up on the 1st of May. So that's going to be so Friday night for me, Friday morning for those of you who are, I guess, time zone challenged.
Time zone challenge. No, we're in the right part of the world. You're in the upside down part of the world.
We're in the positive. You're in the negative. I'm in plus 10.
You're plus 10.
I'm in the future.
Yeah, you're from the future.
But I mean, it's Easter Sunday where I am, so I've already done the chocolate. The Easter Bunny's already visited. So, but so that's going to be a fun one. It's where we've got a lot of people who are contributing to that. A lot of I guess higher profile content creators are hopefully coming in. We've got a song that's actually being recorded that I know Ring's recorded for the song. I think I'm recording something for the song. Did you record anything for the song, Jay?
No, I'm bowing out of this one.
We need to get your beautiful lyrical tones on a song, mate.
Yeah, I guess I don't want to, and it's no offense to you guys. I don't prefer attacking a person, and it's not really attacking a person, but it's just not something I'm into anymore. So more power to you guys. I'll watch. I'll probably, be in the chat for it and whatnot. But yeah,
Ken Ham does it to himself.
Yeah,
but no, that's fair enough. But yeah, that is coming up. So that should be a fun one.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, this was fun, guys. Have fun. We enjoyed. This is enjoyable. We need to figure out another kind of a wacky. Maybe we'll do a Marvel versus DC next.
I'll take the side of DC. 100% DC.
Any takers for Marvel? Let me know, and we can set this up.
Bring it on. Bring it on.
So Marvel versus DC, and the other.
You got the apostate for Team Marvel.
Oh, now see, I want to see that.
It's on.
We're gonna have.
And I say this with all new Wolverine in the background here. So,
Yeah.
actually, hang on. I've even got your cover ready to go for the debate.
Oh yeah, DC versus Marvel. Yep, cool. Yeah, definitely. We're gonna have to set that up. Zach versus Chris, Marvel versus DC. Oh, that could be good.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you, Chris. Though you're gonna have to bring your A game because Zach is on it with his debates.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when you're arguing from the correct position, it makes it a lot easier.
So my thing with that is DC for TV, Marvel for movies, and both of them for comics. So, except for Superman, the hell with Superman.
Yeah, for
Take it back.
No. Superman. It always seems like he's got a new power that it will stop whatever's coming.
Look, 90s Superman. Okay, yeah. Let's not talk about the 90s. The new Superman run, though, it's actually been written by Brian Michael Bendis, who he came up with a lot of the Ultimate Marvel Universe, and Jessica Jones was his. So the new writing for Superman is actually really good, and Superman's hard to write for because it's like he just comes in and uses his superpowers and punches everyone and saves the day. But the current writing and some of the story arcs that are coming in, awesome.
Yeah, because the original Superman couldn't fly.
No.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden now he can fly, and now he can fly really fast, and now he can fly fast enough to spin the Earth backwards. And now he's strong enough to pick up a planet. It's like, what the hell?
Actually, Superman's powers were actually really scaled back after the Silver Age ended.
Yep, big time.
Good, because
Big
he
time.
just got retardedly just really.
Yeah.
You
But
just made him a god. Come on.
So in regards to Marvel versus DC, I'll say if we're talking A-list characters, Marvel. If we're talking like C and below list characters, DC.
See, I would have gone the other way on that. I would have gone Batman, Superman. Even actually, no, I'll save some of this stuff for the debate.
Yeah.
Can't give all my secrets away.
Zane says Superman is only interesting when he's a villain or being challenged. So basically, when he's not Superman.
I will say one of the best alternate universe comic I've read was Superman Red Sun.
Oh yeah, that is cool.
Yeah,
that's just come out as an animated movie too.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the DC Universe streaming isn't available on the PlayStation 4. So we've got to wait until it's available on the PlayStation 4 before we can start streaming DC Universe stuff.
Yeah, I won't say too much because in Australia we get it on Netflix. So.
Yeah.
So a VPN could solve your problem very quietly.
Yeah. Or I might just Redbox it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks guys for coming in and showing up. This was lots of fun.
Definitely.
Hey, Ring, I just got your message. Said you'll jump in momentarily. I'm like, wait a minute. I've been watching Ring. He's not typing nothing. Why am I getting a message?
So
from
hang
Ring?
on. Who have I been arguing with? Is that you, Darth?
Oh, no! You were arguing with Kent Hovind the entire time.
I knew it. Good fun. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, Jen just popped in. She just woke up. She's like, "Who won?" Chris.
But it was fun, and it made everyone think. It's like I said before. It's good to think about these things, and it's good to have an excuse to go back and watch it with maybe a different lens. Picking up things you wouldn't have normally.
And while I may not have won, I achieved what I can. I achieved what I came here to do.
Promote an island in the sea of time. And Harry Turtledove. Harry Turtledove he's probably had more mentions today than he's ever had on YouTube. He's a very niche thing. But anyway,
yeah.
Sorry.
You know what? Sometime after May, I need to get you on Media Musings so we can talk Harry Turtledove.
Hell yeah. I am up for that. I'm absolutely up for that all day.
I'd never heard of him.
But now you have.
But now I have. Yep.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. Join us next week, and we'll try to get some other videos out in the meantime. Check out Chris. Check out Ring. The links are in the description. Like, sub, all that good jazz. And thanks to everybody for coming, and be water, my friends.